everyone, and welcome to a video tutorial for this Poinsettia cat collar. So I hope you enjoy it. Please like, share and subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. You off? Okay. Okay, so to make this Poinsettia cat collar, you'll need some yarn, and you'll probably want to go for the traditional colours of yellow and red, and then if you want to, you can add a green in there too. I'm using the yellow. This is an acrylic for, it's probably about a 4 weight, an acrylic for the centre. I'm using this red metallic, about a 5 weight for the first row of leaves, and then I'm using a green metallic in the same yarn as this. It's an acrylic, will blend these ones, and that will be for my second row of leaves and also for the collar part. So you can just go for the 2 colours if you want to, that's certainly fine. I'm going to add the green in there as well. You'll need a crochet hook that suits your yarn, and I'm actually going slightly smaller than what my yarn recommends, just because I don't want my my flower to end up too big. So I'm using a smaller hook size, so it's a 3mm today. You'll need some scissors to snip your ends, a darning needle to weave in your ends, and I'm going to give you 2 options. So if you want a button-up option, if your cat hates things being slipped over its head, then you can do a button-up version. That's absolutely fine. And if you are using a button-up version, or making a button-up version, you'll need a needle that will fit through the eyes of your button. And then finally, a tape measure to take a measurement from your cat's neck circumference. Okay, so to make this Poinsettia cat collar, you'll need to know how to Okay, to make this Poinsettia cat collar, you'll need to know how to make a magic ring, how to half double crochet, how to slip stitch, how to single crochet, how to change colours and tie on your yarn. You'll need to know how to double crochet, how to make a picot, and I'll show you how to do that. From there, you'll need to know how to triple crochet, and then how to weave in your ends and sew on a button. So it's definitely beginner friendly. We'll be making, or I'll be offering you, I should say, 2 versions. So you can either do a button-up version if your cat doesn't like things being slipped over its head, or you can do this version here, which is a bit more simple. It's just got a slip over the head collar. So you can choose which version you make there. So like I said, it's certainly beginner friendly, just basic techniques. And I think super cute and lovely for the festive season. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to make this starting at the centerpiece and then working our way to this upper round of leaves and then to the lower round of leaves, and then finally we'll make the collar portion. So take your center color and you're going to make a magic ring. So if you need to brush up on any of these techniques, please do. I'm going to assume that you've got most of these basic techniques in your wheelhouse already. So make a magic ring, and there's a few different ways to do that, so however you do that. And then we're going to just chain 1, and that doesn't count as a stitch. And then we're going to place 10 half double crochets into the ring. So we're yarning over, inserting our hook into the ring, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. All the terminology that I use are in US terms. So you're going to place 10 half double crochets into your ring. So I'm going to finish that off camera. You do the same and I'll be right back. Okay, so once you've put your 10 half double crochets into your ring, just make sure that you're not counting your chain again, okay? Just count 10 stitches, and then you'll pull on the end of your, or the tail end of your magic ring, just to close that up. And then locate the first stitch, so ignore the chain, and slip stitch into that first stitch. Chain 1, and we're going to do one more round for this centerpiece. So we're going to place 2 single crochets in each stitch, but we're just going to place them into the back loop only. So you've got in your stitch, you've got these 2 loops here. You're just going to work just into the back loop. Okay, so place 2 single crochets in each stitch in the back loop only, working your way around, and I'll meet you when we get round to the beginning. Okay, so once you've placed 2 single crochets in each stitch, it's a good idea just to double check and make sure you've got the 20, and then you're just going to slip stitch once again into that first stitch to join. Okay, so ignore the chain and slip stitch, and then you can yarn over and pull through, and you can snip off your tail, and that's your centerpiece done. Okay, so it might look really big now, but actually how this is going to work is we're going to work our upper leaves into this round here. So that's the front loops of those first stitches. And then in the second round, we're going to work our under leaves. Okay, so everything will be covered except for this area here, which is going to be our center portion. Okay, so take your next colour, and most likely that will be red, and you're just going to tie on to one of those front loops. Okay, so you can tie on wherever you want. I'm probably going to just tie on into this last one here. So the way I tie on, and there's a few different ways to do it, so you do it your way if you want to. So I just pull up a loop and chain 1, and that's my tie on. And then you'll chain 3, and what I'm going to do is just take a moment just to pull that tail through to the other side, just so while I'm demonstrating to you it's not in my way. But you can do this at the end, so I'm just going to pull that tail through to the other side. So you've got your chain 3 there. Now you're going to double crochet 2 more times back into that same front loop, 1 and 2. So your chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then we've got 2 more, and then you'll chain 2, and then we're going to do something called a picot here. So have a look at the base of your chain, and you'll have these 2 loops here at the base of your chain. Okay, and what you're going to do, insert your hook into them, and you're going to slip stitch through, and that's called a picot. That's the little peaks on the edges of our leaves. Now we're going to, of course, this is half a leaf, we're going to create the second half. So yarn over, double crochet twice more back into that same front loop. Oops, let's start that one again. Back into that same front loop. And then to finish off this leaf, chain 3, and then slip stitch into the same space. So that's created your first leaf. And we're going to create 4 more of those. But first what we'll do is we'll find the next front loop. So for me it's this one here. So I'm just going to slip stitch into that front loop. If you remember, we had 10 stitches at the beginning and we only need 5 leaves. So we're going to slip stitch in that next stitch, slip stitch once again in the next stitch. Oops. Oh, slip stitch. And then we're going to recreate the next leaf. So chain your 3, double crochet back into that same front loop, and again double crochet, chain 2, picot, so insert your hook into those 2 loops, slip stitch, and then create the second half of your leaf. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and because my hook size is quite small compared to my yarn, I'm getting a little bit of splitting. 1, 2 and 3, and then slip stitch back into that same space. Okay, so there you've got 2 leaves. So you're going to do that 3 more times. So just remember to slip stitch in between. So in the next front loop, I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm slip stitching into the base of my next leaf. So the next stitch. And then I'm going to repeat that same process. So I'm going to do that off camera. You go ahead and do yours, and I'll be back soon. Okay, so once you've created your 5 leaves, you'll slip stitch into the next and last front loop, and then you'll slip stitch into the side there of that first leaf, just to bring that together. Okay. So this is how it looks for now. So you've got this, why we work into those front loops is 2 reasons, but also the second reason is that the petals sit upright a little bit. They sit forward slightly, which is what we want. So the second reason obviously is so we can work that round into them, into the back loops. Okay, so now you've got a few options here to decide for yourself. So you can make your second set of leaves in the red if you want to. You could even stop here if you wanted to, although you probably want to come along and make the second round since you've bothered to make that single crochet round, and it does look more three-dimensional with the next round. So that's entirely up to you. So I'm going to change my color because I'm going to go to the green, and so I'll just yarn over and pull through and cut off that tail end. So it also looks really nice in if both layers of petals or leaves are in red. It also looks really pretty, so you could just continue with your red. Now you can take a moment here to weave in your ends if you want to. I'm just going to do that at the end. And then you'll take your green and you're going to tie on. Now where you tie on does matter actually for this round, because you want to tie on in between these top leaves. Okay, so I'm going to tie on here. So you want to tie on somewhere in the center there. Now in this next round the leaves are actually going to be spread over 2 stitches, so just make sure that you're not going too far to the left. You want to stay sort of to the right. Actually, I'm even going to go right one more. So tie on in between those, 2 of the petals on that front area, and make sure also that you're tying on to, you can tie on both loops into the single crochet round in that center piece. So you're tying on underneath there. So I'm just going to tie on as I did before, and then once again my yarn splitting, just chain 1. And then for our underleaves, we're going to chain 5. So we're going to make them slightly bigger. They're going to be the same basic stitch sequence, but we're going to make them slightly bigger. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now into that same single crochet, we're going to triple crochet. So yarn over twice, insert your hook, and make a triple crochet. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then a second triple crochet in that same stitch, 2 and 2. Now we're going to make that picot again, so this time we're going to chain 3, 2 and 3, and the same process, we're going to insert our hook into those 2 loops at the base of the chain and slip stitch. And then we're going to move, to complete this leaf, we're going to move to the next single crochet. So triple crochet into that next single crochet, And once again, triple crochet, same stitch, chain your 5, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then you're going to slip stitch back into that same stitch. Oops. So that's your first underleaf. Okay, so it sits in between the two on the top row. Let me just move that tail out of the way. So it sits in between and it's slightly bigger than the front ones. Okay, so then we're going to move on to create the next underleaf. So we're slip stitching into the next single crochet and then into the next and then into the next, which will bring us to in between the next two leaves. And then we're just going to repeat the same process. So chain your 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Triple crochet back into that same stitch. And again. Triple crochet. Picot of chain 3. And then finish off the second half of this underleaf in the next stitch. So triple crochet in the next single crochet. Just be careful that you're not skipping any of the single crochets. It can sometimes get a little jammed in there, so just make sure you're not skipping any. Chain your 5, 3, 4 and 5. I'm going to slip stitch back into that same space. Oops. Yeah. Slip stitch through, and there's your second underleaf. So you're just going to move around and repeat that same process 3 more times. So I'm getting a few tails at the back there now. So slip stitch into your next, where's my next one? My next one is that one there. So when you're working around the joining spot in the underneath part, just make sure you don't miss that last stitch, and also don't slip stitch, don't count that one that you slip stitched into in the yellow. Okay, move on to the next one. So that's 2 slip stitches, and then the next slip stitch takes us to our starting point for the next leaf. So I'm going to leave you to finish those next 3 off on your own, and I'll see you soon. Okay, I've just finished my 5th underleaf there. So then I'm just going to slip stitch in those remaining 2 stitches. And then once again I'm going to slip stitch just into the base of that first leaf. And that's our main part of our poinsettia finished. Now's where you need to decide whether you're going to make a button up or just a slip over the head collar. So I'm just going to put this one aside for a moment. I'll just pull out that loop slightly, so I've got that there. So I've made one previously, this one here, and this one I'm actually going to make as just a slip over the head. Okay, so you can see what I've done there is I've made most of the length of my collar, and I'm going to show you how we'll finish off that. But let's just show you how we'll start. So we've just started, if you can see here, the collar is coming out from, so look underneath, you'll have these areas where you've got these slips, or the top of these stitches poking out, and we're going to work from there. So we'll actually, because if you want to make the collar part the same color as your last color, then you can just go ahead and start working into these stitches here that are exposed. Okay, so just returning for a moment to the one I'm working on now. So you've just slip stitched into into the base of your leaf. Now turn over, and you're going to, so just bring your tail forward for a minute, and you're just going to start, you could chain one here actually, let's chain one and turn, and we're just going to work into that first stitch that's exposed there. So single crochet into that stitch, oops, split yarn again, into that stitch, and then single crochet into the one next to it. So if you're not doing the same color as your underleaves, then you'll tie off and retie on again here, okay? And then you're going to chain one and turn, and then you're just going to work one single crochet in each of those two stitches. Oops. In each of those two stitches until you get what I've got here. So this is the slip over version, okay? So you'll keep working to the length that you need for your cat's neck circumference. So one single crochet in each stitch, chain one and turn. So once you have the length that you need, and remember to include this length here, you're just going to attach by inserting your hook into, actually we'll insert our hook into the stitches underneath here first, and then into your neckband and single crochet. So you'll just attach them to the end of your row. So there's my second stitch there, and I'll just attach that into the end stitch of my row. So once again, remember to check that your collar isn't twisted and that it's the length that you need to be able to slip it over your cat's head. Let's get that through. Oh, something's got stuck there. Hang on one moment. Okay, sorry about that, a piece of metallic got stuck. So then you'll do your second single crochet in there, and then make sure that it's well attached. Oops, I forgot to work through, don't do that. I forgot to work through the second side of my neckband. There we go. Now we're good. Okay, so you've got that attached there. Now you'll just yarn over and pull through. And I've already snipped that end off. And that's how you'll do just the slip over one, okay? So that one will just slip over your cat's head. And of course you'll weave in your tail end. Now we'll move on to making the one with a button. So you can probably tell what we're going to do is we're just going to, so from each side, so we're working on the first side here. We've started that first side. We're just going to make a first half of this band. We're going to tie on and make from here and make the second half, and then we're going to add a button and a buttonhole at the middle there. So what you'll do is, using your cat's neck circumference plus this area, so take into account always this area here, you'll work out what is half. So for example, Melba's neck circumference, I allow about 24 centimeters. So that means I need about 12 centimeters on either side of my button. And if I allow a little bit extra, let's say I need 13 if I'm just going purely on the neck circumference. So, let's say, yeah, 12 and a half, let's say, to allow 25. And it doesn't matter if you allow a little bit extra because you'll just move the button according to where you need it to be. But just take into account this. So I've got about 3 centimeters here. So I'll subtract that off the 12 and a half. So I need to go, let's say, for about 9 and a half, 10 centimeters on each side. So hopefully that makes sense. But if you just think of it, you want half on one side, half on the other side, taking into account this here, but just, you know, don't stress about it too much because you can certainly adjust where your button sits. So, you know, it's not going to be a disaster if you've gone a little bit too long. But you can, again, you can keep working and you can just check where you're at. So I'm going to go ahead and make about 10 centimeters. Let's say I'm going to make about 11 on each side. And that's going to be plenty. 10 and a half probably. I think 10 and a half is going to be perfect. So I'm going to keep going with this one single crochet in each stitch, chain one and turn, for about 10.5 centimeters on each side. Okay, so once you've got the length that you need on this first one, you'll tie on, so you can tie off this side, you'll tie on the corresponding side. So it's not directly opposite, it's this one here. So you'll tie on, so here's the starting of my band here. You'll tie on to here. And then you'll do your equivalent of my 10.5 on this side, and then we'll add a buttonhole onto this second one. Okay, so you can tie off this first one. And then finally we'll sew on our button. And so you've got that leeway to try it on your cat and work out where you need to put your button. So go ahead, make those 2 halves of your neckband, and I'll do the same and make them to the length that you require. And I'll see you shortly. Okay, so just to come back, I'm at the end of my first band. I'll just double check that I've got the length that I want. Yeah, I've got about 11 there, so that's pretty perfect. So twice 11, 22, plus this area here is going to be 25, and that's plenty for Melba's neck circumference. So I've finished that first one here, and actually I might just for making sure I've got plenty, and since I can adjust with my button, I'm just going to add one more row, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and I'm going to tie on in just the same way as I did before onto this opposite side. So tie on in the same way that you tied on here. You're just going to tie on in that opposite side. So for me it's this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my second half of my my neckband off camera, and I'll meet you and we'll work through the buttonhole together. So actually let's just run through this together. So I'm just tying on to where I need to. So pulling up a loop, chaining 1, tighten, and then I'm going to chain 1 again, and I'm going to put a single crochet back in that same space, and then a single crochet in the next stitch along. Sorry, that's a whole lot of tails in the back there, so hopefully that's clear. And then I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and then I'm on my way. 1 single crochet in each stitch. Okay, see you shortly. Okay, so I've got my second side of my band there. So to make the buttonhole, we're just going to chain 1, and actually I'm going to keep chaining. I'm going to chain 2, let's go 3, and then I'm going to single crochet over in that last stitch. So you're just making a simple chain for your buttonhole, but you'll want to check, take your button and make sure that it can fit through your buttonhole. Just pull that hook out for a second. Can it fit through? Yes, excellent. So you'll just chain to the size that you need for your buttonhole, and then you will yarn over and pull through. So you've just attached the other end of the chain over to your last stitch. Yarn over, pull through, and you've got now some tails to weave in. So I'll show you what I do with some of my tails here. So I'll just what I'll do is I'll show you, the other ones are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll show you what I do with these upper petal ones. This one's already through here, so I'll just weave that one into the back of one of these here. But this one here, I'm going to, because I pulled it through to the other side just while I was working, I'm just going to push it back through. And then I'm just going to once again weave that into the back. So you'll weave all of your, your colours into each other. So the same tail into the same colour. And what I do is I just tend to put them into the back of these leaves here. And then I'll go back one more time. So just so it's secure in the back there. Get that through. And I'll do all that, and then I'll come back and of course we'll sew on our button together. So you go ahead and weave in all your tail ends, weave in your yellows into the yellow, your greens into the green, and I'll be back soon. And remember, you can use this tail end to sew on your button if it's not too thick. So I might try and take out the metallic thread, and is it going to work? Yeah, I might take, maybe it's going to be a bit too fine. Maybe I'll split my yarn and I'll use that to sew on my button. Yeah, that's what I'll do, and I'll just weave in this other bit of the tail end. So I'll be back soon and we'll sew on the button together. Okay, I've threaded that, like sort of that strand of yarn that was my tail at this end. That's my button end. So I'm going to just sew on my button using that tail end. Now you'll want to just make sure that you've got the length that you need. So from your buttonhole all the way along to where your button's going to be sewn on. So I'm going to be fine sewing it on just around here. Oops, yeah, on the other side, of course. About there is going to be fine. So I'm just going to weave down my little end of yarn. So you can just use a piece of thread, or you don't have to do what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to sew on this button using this tail, and just make sure you've got it where you want it. Check it on your cat, or just check the measurement. So make sure the button's nice and firmly on there. Not that your cat's going to be able to get to it if it's around its neck, but just, always keep in mind any choking hazards or swallowing hazards. Make it nice and firm. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to weave in the rest of this tail end in the back here. And that sort of kills two birds with one stone. My tail is woven in and it's sewn on my button. So there it is. So you've got your poinsettia collar in the version with a button, and the version, if I can find, yes, here it is, or the version that just goes over the neck, and I've still got one end to weave in there, so forgive me for that one. So you've got, two options there. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I think this is super pretty. I think poinsettia are such pretty flowers, so I wanted to create a version of that for Melba, for her collar. So yeah, I love to see photos of your cat wearing his or her crochet creations. So please send those along to catventurous.community@gmail.com, or you can tag us on social media at catventurous.crochet. And please comment below, introduce yourself, say hi. I love to read and reply to your comments. So yeah, thanks so much for being here. Please like, share and subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. You ready? Yeah. 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 You want a treat? Yeah, you're so good. Good job.